So hey, okay, welcome.
Welcome everybody.
Hi,
Hi Jake.
Hi, bud. Welcome. Come on in to the story shack
And take a seat. Pop a squat. Stay a while.
Pop a squat on the couch next to the fire. We got a little TV above that fire, and you know what's on that TV today? Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber, yeah.
Dumb and Dumber.
The thing I thought was interesting because I looked it up was it was listed as the Farrelly brothers' first feature-length movie.
Oh yeah.
Did you notice that?
I did.
Yeah, I didn't know that. It makes sense, but I also think I didn't know about them when I first saw this movie.
I know that I didn't.
Yeah, I was way too young.
I was like 6.
Yeah.
Or something. I remember my brother really liked it and would rant and rave about it, and then I would watch it and didn't catch nearly as many of the jokes as I do now as an adult.
Yeah, as most people I think do. That's kind of the same boat for me. I also can't recall if we had like an actual VHS copy or rented it, but I remember like being in the living room and being told, yeah, I think he could watch it. It should be fine. I'm like, yeah, I think because we're both like the same age. So it's PG-13, but
right.
Yeah, I could go into a whole side tangent on that with like other Farrelly brother movies that I watched with my parents that were rated R.
Right.
I won't talk about right now. But anyways, before I was even like probably 12 for those ones. So Farrelly brothers it's definitely an interesting start to the start of the Farrelly brothers. What do you call it? Saga? Not saga. That's more like a contained thing.
Yeah, not saga, but
portfolio.
Yeah.
Something.
And I know one of them, I think Peter, has branched out into more dramatic things lately. And I think they're kind of no longer the Farrelly brothers.
Mm-hmm.
But
I noticed that.
They did Dumb and Dumber. They did Kingpin. Mm-hmm. They did Me, Myself, and Irene.
And there's something about Mary.
There's something about Mary. Yeah. Shallow Hal.
Yeah. When I looked up the first 4 that you just mentioned were listed. I was trying not to read too much of it, but there's a Wikipedia page mentioning how those 4 they all revolved around a plot of a road trip.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think about it that way. And so I saw that. I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, obviously Dumb and Dumber is, but
right.
From what I recall about the other movies, I'm like, I that does seem right. Like they're on their way somewhere because of, definitely Me, Myself, and Irene too. I remember that because they're trying to.
Yeah. Well, Dumb and Dumber is definitely a road trip movie, in my hollowed opinion. So what do we got here? We got Lloyd's introduced first.
Yeah.
And he's at the back of the limo. He does his little shrimp on the Barbie joke.
Yeah.
And I just kind of love I tried to watch it as somebody that hasn't seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like he's not in the back of that limo, but you don't really know like he's not supposed to be there. Like it just doesn't feel
he's at a place by the way he's acting, because he's obviously, and that's the thing is I think this, and then when we meet Harry, it's a good intro to the characters. It's like, how much can you say about a character in a scene? And they did that, like their job, so the occupation they currently have until they get fired shortly thereafter, and how they act, because they're both similar in ways with how dumb they are, but they're still different, because Harry has his nuances of like where he seems smarter than Lloyd with some things, so there's that going on throughout. But as far as like beginnings for these 2 protagonists, it's a good intro for that. And something else I'd like to, we don't have to talk about right now, but how you said another shrimp on the Barbie, because she says she's from Austria. From Austria. Oh yeah, because it was a different girl. I was picturing Mary.
Right.
So yeah, from Austria. And so that I always forget the word, but I had to look it up because I was a fan of it. Shakespeare did this kind of thing, but malapropism, where it's like that you mistakenly use a word, or I have the definition still up too. Because an act or habit of misusing words ridiculously, especially by the confusion of words that are similar in sound. So that, right? Austria, and then thinking Australia.
Right.
And then he says that. And so there's a few of those, I think I had.
It's a lovely accent. New Jersey.
Yeah. I'm not going to skip too far, but another one that I at least wrote down that I remembered, there was a few of these malapropisms, but was when the cop's trying to pull him over and he's all pull over and he's all, no, actually it's a cardigan.
Right.
So yeah, it's just, yes, there's a few throughout.
So there's some Shakespearean dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, because the one I remember learning that about was Much Ado About Nothing. And Michael Keaton does a good one for the Kenneth Branagh movie of it. It's the freaking, it's not a gatekeeper. He's like the guard. He's like the sheriff. He's like the sheriff or something in that. And he uses that throughout. And that's in, because they do them like kind of verbatim, right? For the play. There's a lot of those in there for that character. And I thought that was so great. Plus I liked Michael Keaton. So when I watched the movie version of it, I was like, oh, that's really cool to see his like kind of neurotic and like, he's kind of being idiotic because he comes off idiotic by saying that stuff. And so this just kind of calls to that. And I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call the movie like a Shakespearean play for Dumb and Dumber, but it's definitely like it's not a trope, but it's like a method of. Okay, so I left off talking about malapropisms. Yeah. And it's not a Shakespeare play, but it's a fun comedy. What are your? Now we are talking character, so let's go back to character. Yeah. So yeah, the first scene, each character, I think it says something about each one. His interaction. Lloyd's is with a woman. Right.
I think so. I feel like Lloyd's, with him starting off in the back, but then it being revealed that he's actually driving the limo. That kind of symbolizes that he's not comfortable. He wants something to change. Where Harry is just getting hot dogs for some dogs, and he's got the full dog costume on and the dog van, and he's just kind of content and comfortable.
That's true.
And I think that plays to their dynamic.
Definitely. And I think for Harry, because his is kind of simple in a way, but then at the end when he's trying to talk to the lady who's like, you're 40 minutes late. And but he's kind of like composed, like he can say something, sounds convincing, and then the situation is like, oh, I messed up. I did something dumb. Like I left ketchup and mustard balls back there, which is why they got all messed up for the show. These dogs, these show dogs.
So Lloyd goes to pick up Mary.
Yeah.
And we're introduced to her. And there's a lot of good music cues there. And she shuts the door and he grips his chest. And not saying this is a Shakespearean show or play or anything, but there's definitely like a lot of that dramaticisms where it's like, oh, yeah, I pine kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of going back to the, us making notes on this, him being kind of a romantic, but the idiot romantic. So but then it's undercut. Like there's lines in there I didn't realize like later where when they figure out the big reveal of the money in the suitcase. Sorry to jump around a little bit, but he says, yeah, he's the kind of woman I'd do anything, the kind of woman that I do anything to bone.
Right. Yeah. That's what I caught those too.
Yeah.
And I mean, before he pulls up, suck me sideways.
Yeah. I heard that. And I always thought it was like, I forgot because I was like, oh, he does say suck me sideways, but I used to hear something else. Shut me sideways or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? I thought I heard something different before, and I'm like, oh, that's what he says. Cause it's just trying to get, it's like, so he goes across country kind of, or whatever, to get laid.
So something we kind of discussed before was kind of the tone, and is this like a buddy flick? But I get from the beginning, I feel like it's a rom-com. Like there's a lot in it that makes me feel like it's a rom-com. Not to mention the music. But I'm just throwing it out. I just had that note that it felt very rom-com-y. And that's at least how it starts. It's a theme throughout, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wasn't sure how to answer whether or not it was a buddy flick for this one. Because there's definitely the relationship between the two protagonists. I almost want to feel like it's kind of both, but not exactly. I don't think it's the generic or classic idea of a buddy flick. It might just be the two characters' relationship. Yeah. Which is, happens between all the characters. Like there's a relationship, whether it's the kidnapped or criminal people or whatever, right? Right. And Lloyd and Harry or the lady that was undercover actually the whole time. That Harry, like it's just there's a
we'll
thing
get
going
to that.
on.
I've got some problems with her.
Yeah, there's some stuff that I have a small theory that I don't know if I want to call it a theory, but I'm gonna say theory for now.
So he's taking Mary to the airport. What's the matter? You tense about the flight. And I'd never really caught it before, but that definitely foreshadows what happens later. I always thought it was just kind of him picking up on her maybe being nervous about the flight. I didn't realize that it was due to what's kind of going on in the B story of things.
I think, that's true. That's the B story, the B plot or whatever. It's B plot. I had something. I was thinking, foreshadowing. Just in general, I was thinking foreshadowing.
I've got so many
things I didn't realize because I already remembered the story, and when I'm watching, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
So she drops the suitcase. He chases after her, grabs the suitcase. And I believe the one of the antagonists, it's named Mental, which I never really caught before either.
Yeah, I thought he was calling them mental,
right?
Even though he also, I think, thought they were kind of smart or whatever. So I didn't know what he meant. Yeah,
it foreshadows with his ulcer pills because he takes some pills and your ulcer, that kind of thing. So that foreshadows that. I've got so much with that and just kind of setups and payoffs. My main takeaways from this movie, and there's so many that I didn't realize. So every time we get to one, I'll bring it up. But that's the first kind of setup is those ulcer pills.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, the setup payoff, because I think I've heard that as a criticism on newer comedies. Is there's some stuff that gets set up but then left behind, whether it got accidentally left on the cutting room floor, so to speak, or it just was never written in there because not a good writer for that movie or something. Good script. So
there's a really great moment later in this that I'll kind of get back to with this, but I watched a video a few months ago when I was kind of trying to learn more about story structure and stuff, and I can't remember what movie it was dissecting. It might have been Fight Club. I don't know. But it talked about how, I think it was Christopher Nolan movie. It doesn't matter. But it talked about how if you set something up in a certain order, it has to be paid off in the reverse. Or else, if anything's out of order, it kind of takes away from the effect of whatever you're trying to, portray.
I feel like I've heard that before. Could you elaborate on the reverse part? Like mirroring it or just the opposite?
I can elaborate on it when we get to a point.
Okay, sure.
I call it the sandwich.
Okay.
That's what I call it. I'll let you know when we get to the sandwich.
Okay. The only other thing I would say, at least with the opening for the protagonist, is it was actually another, I think it's kind of like another malapropism, because when he's running through, he slides, grabs the briefcase. I made a note on this one, but I put the quote in there. Then he goes up the escalator, he passes the nurse, and he yells, "Move it or lose it, sister." And I used to think it was just because it was a woman, but I almost think now he thinks it was a nun, but she was dressed as a nurse. I'm taking a stab out there, but I almost think that that's just another one of those little things in there.
I could see that. I could definitely see that.
I don't know if that's what it. I don't know. That's my guess, though. I
love that. What do you think the inciting incident is?
Ooh, that's like
tough for me. I feel like there's a lot of them.
I forget. Is inciting incident different than call to action? No, call to action is like the hero's journey, technically.
Yeah.
But there's the thing that kind of kickstarts.
Is it him?
The rest of the.
Is it her dropping the suitcase? Him getting the suitcase, or is it when they finally get back home and he has that kind of actual heartfelt moment where he says he's sick and tired of eking his way through life, and it's kind of a.
By the way, on that, sorry, I'm interrupting you. But on that specifically, like that, those lines, there's lines in there that's like, oh, this is kind of good.
Yeah.
Like that, and because then you go, oh, okay, there's your moment to kind of sympathize with these characters.
There's the heart of this.
That's right. They're normal people. We're watching a comedy. There's some ridiculous stuff that happens, but it's still kind of
they're idiots.
It brings you down to earth.
They're dumb, but they're human.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And which is another thing. He yells, "I'm only human, Harry," when he drives 5 hours the wrong way later on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I go, yeah, that's true. You're an idiot, but you are human. So,
yeah.
So are we all idiots? Oh, sorry. Did I just go through a theme? Sorry.
Who's really dumb and who's dumber? You know?
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. I'm sorry. I kind of went off the. So Inciting Incident. I know I might have to look up exactly what it is to be accurate, but I'm going to take a guess. I almost feel like there's like a moment when he sees that the briefcase was left. Mm-hmm. So he felt like he needed to act on it. Yeah. And then from there, because that's the thing that changes it. So I feel like that's the direction. Even though then it takes another change, he felt like, I got to go do this thing. But then subverting our expectations, he also runs off and
slows down for a minute.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, what? But then the B plot catches up with them for a second. Right. And then like, we got to get out of there. And that
drives it further.
Yes. Yeah. So I almost want to say it's the briefcase, as much as I also feel like the part where they leave the apartment and start the journey on the road trip could be it. For Lloyd, at least. Yeah. There's like, because then something's missing. Like you said, there's a brief pause. He's kind of deflated. He thinks he's in love, even though he's more
the suitcase could be Lloyd's, but then Lloyd being sincere could be the incident for Harry. Yeah. Yeah. That kind of pushes him along. Let's see that. So then did you pay the gas?
You idiot. Or what does he call him an idiot? Yeah. Do you realize what you've done?
Yeah, do you realize what you've done? And then they bail. They go looking for jobs unless you want to work for 40 hours a week, blah, blah, blah. They come back. Petey's dead. And there's the random scene with the old lady, which I feel like is just comic relief kind of thing. Not really comic relief, but just kind of senseless jokes that I don't hate, but they don't really do anything for the plot. It kind of explains the lack of seriousness that Lloyd has. I don't know how that pays off. Yeah. Or if that sets anything up. Or if it's just kind of a senseless joke.
Yeah, the only thing would be now they're completely out of funds. But then it's weird because then they have enough for gas to do the trip. It's the funding is that he got the money from selling the dead Petey.
Right, and then they got money from a motel and so I think there's some holes there.
It's just to be another like, oh, they're that dumb kind of thing. Right. But yeah, it's that like maybe if it wasn't there, you didn't have to. Right. But it kind of it drives home maybe it takes care of if they didn't do that, would we as an audience be like, well, why don't they just focus on hunkering down and eating the food, like if they spent the money on that. So they go and spend money on it, even though it's really beer, it sounds like, because Harry gets back and is like, where's the beer? Right. Beer and pinwheels.
Big cowboy hat.
4 pinwheels, the paddle ball thing. Yeah, all that. It was so good. It's more for just comedy, I feel like. I can't think of it as having done much more than that.
How do they know I got gas? They give them more credit than they're due.
Oh my god, yeah, they're dumb. Yeah, too, in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
He has pill bottle. He has rat pills on it or poison pills. Right. Later, that's like, well, we also have this other thing. So I mean, you didn't think ahead enough. That'd be like a normal person though, being like, I don't know, like if a normal person who happens to go and like try to kill people or is a criminal. Right. So put yourself in that situation, something like that could happen.
Right, exactly. So then we're at a diner. They're
Seabass
talking it up with folks. Seabass comes in.
Kick his ass.
And then, so here's a little, well, not a whole thing. This is something where the plot drives a joke, I think. So they swindle Seabass out of some money. They go speeding off. The speeding leads them to not wanting to pull over for Lloyd to pee. So he starts peeing in the bottles. But the speeding also leads to them getting pulled over by a cop. And all of that intersects with him drinking from that bottle. Yeah. So it all just kind of leads to that joke.
So is that's like a joke as the setup for another joke? that pays off.
Yeah, that happens a lot. A lot of the setups are jokes that lead to other things.
And that's where, when we were talking beforehand of it's not just like a segmented or separate skit after skit.
Right.
It's a joke that leads to another joke that leads to another, and then it goes to another scene. Or whatever, and but it still kind of moves you like from point A to B to C.
Exactly.
At least with the plot, within the plot. So it makes enough sense.
Yeah, and I think it makes the jokes better because they're not there without a purpose. They drive things forward. And I think that at least in comedies of that time, wasn't really happening as much. Mm-hmm. I think it was a lot of senseless kind of things. Given I probably haven't seen as many 80s comedies as I should.
Yeah, but I know. I was trying to think of some.
At least in my opinion, it wasn't. My opinion that I have no relevant bearing on.
Yeah. Like, what was an 80s comedy to kind of set?
I keep thinking of Weekend at Bernie's, but I can't talk about it because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it was 80s. Huh? You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it.
I didn't see it. I saw parts of it, and then I finally watched like almost the whole thing a couple years ago. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. But I think Blues Brothers was also 80s.
Could be. Yeah,
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters,
but then you have some sci-fi kind of thing. And then I always think of like Back to the Future has some comedy to it, but it's like kind of a sci-fi time travel thing. But it's more lighthearted. So I don't know if I would call it comedy. Right. I don't know where that fits.
So then we're led to the B story heavily.
Yeah.
With the Ransom Reveal. Mm-hmm. And I left it where they told me to leave it. How come they didn't get it? And I think they do a really good job of giving us enough, but not giving away that it's her husband, and kind of keeping it very mysterious.
Definitely.
And keeping it intriguing, keeping things moving forward with it. It also foreshadows the gala that they've got in 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That comes up later. And without that, they wouldn't have found her, I don't think, without that gala.
That's true, too. Yeah. Which kind of then, I guess, in a way pays off, right? But,
right.
Yeah, there's something about that scene when they're talking that I always was like, what are they? They all seem kind of like they don't belong.
Right.
But it's because we just don't know the characters is kind of one of them. But I think it's because they're just giving us just enough information.
Yeah.
So we can then go to the next scene and get to the part where also the gala being a couple weeks kind of gives us in our heads, I think, like a little bit of a time limit, but it's not, but it's like, okay, because things are going to converge and come to, a final resolution and
right.
What's the peak climax part? So
what's
the peak? I have a visual in my head of a peak of a tip and then drop into denouement.
Yeah. So then we have a daydream, which just feels like senseless jokes, but it also shows Lloyd's expectations.
True.
That was always
one of my favorite parts.
That's him getting accepted. Somebody who can plug us into the social pipeline. He's the life of the party, lighting his farts off.
Oh my God, that was it. The things he says, it's just like ridiculous. And then, Lord, everyone's going to love it. Like, yeah,
right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then he has the romantic dinner where he rips out he defends her and is a protector, a good, solid partner. And then they go to make love and he gets distracted by headlights. Which brings him back. And then it's revealed that Mr. Andre, somebody who we met previously in the Ransom thing, is the actual bad guy. Mm-hmm. And then we get picked up. We pick up the mental guy. I think his name on the IMDb is like Mentaloni or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But mental for short. I always thought it was Mento, but it's, I think, mental.
The breath maker?
Yeah.
Fresh maker? What is the line?
Yeah.
A shameless plug. We don't have any sponsors. So.
No sponsors. But they pick him up. They drive. There's a lot of little jokes in there. With the other people they pick up, the singing, the annoying sound. All of those are great, kind of Jim Carrey type things.
Yeah.
What I want to say about all these senseless jokes and throughout this, is there a straight man between Harry and Lloyd? Or are they both the joke and everybody else is the straight man?
Ooh, I would lean more towards that. I was going to say if I had to pick between the two, like since Harry more often comes off, or, you know, with talking, right. I don't want to say like straight man, but that he's a little bit smarter at times, but then sometimes he's just as dumb. So then it's both of them. And so maybe it depends on the situation.
Right.
The times where they're both kind of being idiotic at the same time, it's everyone else. If it's mostly just the two of them in some joke.
Right.
Because I don't know, is that like the line with the "Did you pay the gas bill?" and then the overtop reaction of Lloyd? Is that kind of idiotic because of the way he's treating it, or is that actually that's pretty normal? Because I guess if you didn't pay the gas bill, that might be a problem. But then
right,
then
but they're not going to show up.
It's dumb. But he's like, "Oh, is that what it was?" Like,
right.
I thought that was a good example. It might not have been, but
yeah. So then we have the gas man, and we finally get the payoff of both. Well, there's a scene in the hot tub and stuff that I didn't write down, but I'm remembering. And just kind of, Freda Felcher talks about the relationship, and that kind of comes up later. So just going to mention that. But then, yeah, the gas man at the chili, they put chilies on the thing while he goes to make a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Or he goes to the bathroom. He's going to put rat poison in. We finally get the payoff of both the rat poison, the ulcer, and the little chili joke that they were going to do.
Yeah.
Which leads to the C story of the FBI coming in.
Yeah.
And hunting a sheepdog.
Yeah, you get that introduced in. You're like, okay, so now there's someone's tracking someone.
Right.
Because they're like sheepdog. What was the initial thing? Oh, just because of that death then. It was just... Yeah. But then that leads them to, which may get into something you were going to bring up with the undercover lady. Because it almost seems like they're trying to catch the actual bad guys.
Right.
Like all of them. So they knew something, but then Harry and Lloyd just happened to get themselves in all this. Yeah,
the FBI is either playing it very nonchalant, or Harry and Lloyd are just really suave about not getting detected or playing under the radar.
Well, here comes another thing. So since they're the ones who... do you think there was ever a point where the FBI thought Harry and Lloyd were the real bad guys, and that's why they... because of them killing the one guy of mental, accidentally, but
yeah, they could be
like it's not shown in there, so I guess this would all be just theory of, since Lloyd grabbed the briefcase, what if they were following the briefcase before that?
Right.
And then they were able to kind of track them, but then really hunkered down when, and then that's where it goes, oh, they killed this guy. Because we don't know. No, I mean, this is a lot of just theorizing.
It could have because all right, here, I'll try and play devil's advocate with it. So because it's a kidnapping, and it's kind of it's a private type thing where there are a lot of elements involved with ransom and stuff, they could have had an undercover unit following her with the briefcase that the other FBI that was investigating the murder or whatever, or the cops or whoever, weren't aware that all of these things were happening.
Yeah, maybe they thought there's a tie, but then somehow it got worked out partway through.
So we've now reached the sandwich part that I had hinted at earlier.
Oh, the sandwich, yeah. You can explain.
So, okay. It's a bunch of elements coming together, and it started with Seabass. So Seabass, tough guy, they run away, whatever. And then they park at this gas station. There's another thing that happens. Harry goes to fill the tank, spills a bunch of stuff on it, spills a bunch of gas on his leg, starts talking to the girl, who we find out later is an undercover cop. Lloyd goes into the bathroom, sees the note that somebody's going to be
man-loving or something.
Man love or whatever. So The lady goes to light up a cigarette. Harry lights a match, throws it at his feet, sets those on fire, which is the payoff to him spilling the gasoline all over himself.
Yep.
She speeds away, and then Seabass comes into the bathroom, revealed that this like tough guy is just there for some man love.
Well, that's what I want to know. I was going to ask. Am I interrupting?
No, you're good.
Is he there for that? Because that's what I always thought. But I think when I was younger, I didn't realize it was the same guy. I just thought it was some guy. I feel like. So since it's the same guy, was he following them? Did he catch up, or was he there? I don't think he was
following them. I think he was there for
far. You think he was there for that?
I think he was there for that.
He like kind of opens it up like angry. I thought, or no, or was it just he saw him and then got angry? I'm not sure.
He opens it and then gets angry. I think he kind of has some shock. But then we close off the cigarette by him coming in, bursting through the door, knocking out Seabass, and putting his foot out in the bowl. And it kind of closes off that sandwich. There's all these setups that all get paid off in like the same 30 seconds.
Is it sandwiched like in the same? It's not like a start and end and there's some stuff in between? It's like there's layers?
Yeah, absolutely. So it starts with Seabass.
But with a beginning and end. So it's not like an onion peeling back with layers. It's got a, okay.
So it's Seabass, gasoline, light, fire out Seabass.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing.
To kind of close that off too. Yeah. Knock them out and
exactly.
And they get out of situations like that so easily, it seems, where just something stupid happens, or they do something stupid, which then has kind of like a stupid outcome that ends up saving them.
Right.
Because he had no idea who was in that stall.
Which to move on to the next point where they do something stupid that gets them out of trouble. They've got roadblocks set up at the Colorado border, and Lloyd makes a wrong turn, and they go the opposite direction. Gets them out of trouble.
The roadblocks, yeah.
But here's something that popped into my head when I was watching it. What would have happened if they would have gotten stopped by the cops? Mm-hmm. Would everything that Harry does later with the bulletproof vest and everything, would that have all just kind of happened with both of them being fine? Or, they wouldn't get arrested.
Yeah, and I was like, would they get in trouble?
I think it would be kind of them brought into the they would see that it was just kind of a misunderstanding and be able to play along with it more.
That's possible. But then it wouldn't be a comedy then, right?
Right.
It would you could still make it kind of, but it might turn into like a crime movie or something.
It wouldn't be as fun.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be as dumb.
But I think you're right. I think something like that could still play out. It would totally, that'd be something if you wanted to do a complete 180. That's what you have happen. You have that, and then still work on maybe some payoff. Now you might have to change the tone completely then.
Right. Yeah.
Because I don't know how you would keep that up.
Right.
Because then they're working with. Well, I don't know. It'd be like if the thought of maybe the FBI is now the straight man and they're the dumb ones, right? So
right.
There could still be some stuff that would work out, but I don't know.
Right. So they end up losing the van. Lloyd comes back with the moped.
Clutch.
Sold it. Yeah.
It made so much sense in that, like, they don't have a lot of money. It saves on gas. It'll be ridiculous and probably take longer because it's probably maxes out between 40 and 60 if I'm being generous.
So here's my question. When Harry has to go to the bathroom and he says, just go, and then later he's stuck to him, is he stuck to him from the pee, or is he just frozen in place in general because it's been cold?
Yeah, I thought it was in general, but I think you're right. It might be the pee.
I think it's
the warm pee would have loosened it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he peed a while ago. It would have frozen again.
Yeah, exactly.
And he would be, So they get into town. They can't find Mary. They check the phone book. Lloyd was right about the last name.
Yes, I know.
But I haven't really thought about that before, but Lloyd was right. He got it right. But then Lloyd makes him switch it and check Samsonite. She's not listed, so they have to be out in the wilderness. Harry, your hands are cold. Take my extra pair of gloves. I loved that entire thing because I was specifically watching his hands as soon as they were on the moped and saw him with like the super thick gloves and Harry with none.
Yeah.
How much money do you think was in the briefcase?
Is that your question to me?
That's my question to you.
Because that's not really addressed, right? But there was one point where he mentions I think the car being $275,000 alone. So I would say $1 million, but they probably blew through more money than
They were at the hotel. They bought all these new clothes. They bought the Lamborghini.
There was no money left though, right?
No, absolutely
So
not.
maybe $1 or $2 million. Because this was, I forget, was this 94, 96? I think it was 94.
Yeah, this was like 94.
So yeah, $1 million would also be a lot of money, even for a ransom. Maybe even for a kind of important person. But they blew, if the car was that much, maybe they didn't buy it outright.
Right.
Maybe they did though.
Maybe they're leasing.
Yeah.
They put a down payment down.
Yeah, exactly. They still had to put quite a bit down though. Yeah. What do you think? How much money was in that briefcase?
I mean, okay, so yeah, the car's an expensive thing. They're staying in a nice hotel. But I mean, this is all in the span of maybe 3 or 4 days. So 3 or 4 nights stay. That's not that much. The food and all the dress and the suits and everything. I'm going to say $1 million. I don't think they'd go higher than that because I feel like $1 million was a lot of money back then. It's still a lot of money, but back then it was even more.
Exactly.
And I don't think that a hotel stay or anything like they had would have been too significantly overpriced. So I'm going to say $1 million. Sounds like a good ransom number.
Well, I'm glad we can agree on that because that sounds good.
Yeah.
To me too. It's a good question.
So then they're at the hotel. Shout out to near my hometown because that's where they filmed some of that.
That's right. Yeah, you're from Colorado, so that makes sense. So wait, Aspen's not in California?
So
where I live?
No.
Oh, I grew up.
So they say it's Aspen, but they actually shot in Breckenridge. But the hotel they stayed at and the bar that's there is actually in Estes Park, which is the Stanley Hotel, which is where Stephen King wrote The Shining. And the Overlook is based on.
Nice.
So yeah, they get all the fancy stuff. They're reading in the newspaper. They see that the gala's the next day or whatever. So it finally pays off what they were talking about in the opening with when we originally found out about the ransom. Hey, Lloyd, we got to get you ready for the ball. They get those amazing suits.
Oh yeah, amazing.
And then they go to this gala. And I have another question for you. In the initial ransom conversation they were having where we were meeting the family and everything, Mary's mom kind of tells her to stepmom goes, there you go, that's even better. Helen, the stepmom, tells her to go about like nothing's changed, keep going to parties, do your things and everything. And then when Harry comes up to talk to her, Helen pushes Mary toward her, or Harry pushes her toward Harry, kind of thing.
Helen pushes Harry. Yeah, I got you. Toward the stepmom was encouraging to
Do you think that she was in on it?
In on which part? Sorry.
In on the ransom, working with Andre.
I feel
like there's deleted scenes and stuff that we could probably find somewhere that might be able to clear up some of these theories, but I just it's a theory I was working on.
I had another one on that has to do with Mary, because I was thinking the whole time, I was like, now knowing, and have known for a while, but watching this watch through was or watching this viewing, I don't know, what do we call it?
Right.
Oh, it was what was Mary not a swinger, but like if she has a husband, she seems way too like she's having too much fun with this guy. Like if I was her husband and knew that, I'd feel kind of weird, but maybe I'm a little more insecure than some people. But the way she was acting seemed kind of like maybe she is kind of into him. And so is she in on, but then she would have had to know who he was.
Right.
And so maybe there's a whole thing there that doesn't really matter for this story.
Right.
It's just, it's a little weird, but I think they're also just trying to lead you to believe or not, not think, oh, she's
exactly.
probably married.
They're playing up
but it brings up questions of like, how loyal is Mary usually then? Does she like have guys that take her out places, and then the husband, I mean, I guess that could be a thing,
Right.
It's weird. It's kind of weird. Sorry, that's kind of like a side thing, but
no, I get you.
Yeah. I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that in general. I think that was pretty much it for me.
I didn't really think too much about it. I did have a little bit of when she's with Harry and they're skiing and stuff. It definitely, I wouldn't say super flirtatious, but it's definitely, I don't know. It's just a little suspect.
Yeah, you just met this guy and you're going to go, which is fine if you're like now making a new friend too.
Right.
But then with the way he's being a little too playful.
And also like your husband's kidnapped.
Yeah.
And your family's like fine with you going out with this random guy that showed up.
So weird, man.
Like,
I think she knows a little bit more than we realize. And like you said, now that we're talking about, maybe it was more the family. And here, this is where I'm like, I didn't have an actual theory, but I was trying to formulate something. Mm-hmm. Maybe she had an affair once before. Mm-hmm. And maybe the stepmom knew about it. And maybe also the stepmom's in on it, like you said. And so she's leveraging that with Mary to get something with like this guy.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of, there's some backstory
shenanigans.
There. There's some shenanigans going on. But there's a lot of great jokes that happen. Harry coming in with the speed suit.
Oh, yeah.
Him getting stuck by his tongue on the thing, on the ski lift. There's the snowball fight, which is one of my favorite cuts in the entire movie, where she playfully throws a snowball at him and he takes it serious and just chucks a snowball at her face, and right before it hits her face it cuts, and it's just such a good, I can see that in my head, and every time I get sad I just see that and it's hilarious.
Yeah, and then he just stops himself after they roll down the hill, and he's like, "What am I?" He's
what's going?
That's the thing. That's the other thing, is he's super aware that like he's like more aware of the fact that he does stupid stuff.
Yeah. He got caught up in it.
Yeah. Whereas Lloyd, oh man, that makes me now think Lloyd plays it like he thinks he's the straight man,
right?
And he thinks everything he's doing is fine, but then Lloyd sometimes thinks that, but then he also goes, oh man, I think I just messed up, because he then also calls Lloyd out for messing up and like blames him. So wow, that's such a weird like thought on the whole thing then.
So while they're out skiing, Lloyd's at the bar waiting for Mary at 10 a.m. we find out later, but runs into the undercover officer who still doesn't reveal herself and just kind of is a weird looming presence.
Yeah. She blabbers about her ex-boyfriend, which I think she was really going through. It wasn't a made-up thing. Yeah. I used to think it was made up, but then seeing as how annoying Lloyd was getting at it, I think she actually talked about some stuff. So she really had to either sell it or it was a real thing, and she was using that to kind of
I could definitely see that being the case.
Yeah. that was my little thought on her anyway.
I love that. Yeah, she comes in here all the time. What's that supposed to be?
Yeah, she comes and gets dinner with her family or something. Oh, okay.
So then Lloyd finds out that Harry has betrayed him, and he does something that I laughed at and didn't really understand until I had my first heartbreak, where he starts gagging.
The laxative.
Like he wants where he wants to throw up. Mm-hmm. Because he's so upset. And every time I've been that upset and I start kind of wanting to throw up or gag, it's happened like twice maybe, because I'm a pretty chill guy. But it makes me laugh because I can no longer take myself serious if I get to that point of being upset because of this movie. Oh, you shut it off.
Yeah, I have a mute button.
You talking? What were you talking about?
My wife was saying they're headed to the pool, so just let me know. I'll go.
Is that a poop reference?
Drop the kids off at the pool. Yeah. So, sorry. What was the last thing you said?
Lloyd finds out the gagging. The upsetness.
Heartbreak.
So then they're back in the hotel room. Harry says, oh, she must have meant 10 o'clock at night. Oh, I thought she was just a raging alcoholic. And then Lloyd plants the laxative into his tea or hot cocoa or whatever they were drinking.
Yeah. Probably spiked something.
Yeah.
Like with alcohol. Because he's like, let's have a drink.
Right. Let's do a toast.
It seems like a toast, but you could toast anything. So I guess, whatever it is.
And he
whatever.
Like, shoves the cup up so he finishes it all.
Just to finish all of it. They almost did a product placement there then with that laxative because of the way that he...
Right.
Yeah.
Fast, efficient. So then Harry goes to Mary's and basically blows out his colon in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. We've all been there.
We've all been there.
Minus laxative even.
Right. And we never really find out how he gets out of this situation.
Yeah, I just kind of...
Because Lloyd shows up, Mary leaves with him, and that's the end of that.
He probably just left it and snuck out of there.
Yeah. I mean, they're rich. They'll get a plumber in there. They'll be fine. Yeah. But there is a payoff, and there's a setup, and there's a payoff to a setup around this scene. Do you know what it was?
The laxative?
It's Petey. Because they talk about...
Oh, yeah, she's watching the news.
She's watching current affairs, and what kind of sick people are these?
Yeah. That's what I just always... Yeah, it's such a great line because she's talking to them. So
right. There's another one of those in the beginning that I forgot to mention, but Lloyd talking about horrible drivers, and then it cuts to Harry spinning around with the dogs.
Yeah, there's that. And he drives right through the intersection right then.
Oh, yeah.
Lloyd does.
Almost hits that guy.
And the explosion in the background's totally fake. I mean, it's a movie, so it's going to be fake, but it's a little cheap looking. I don't know if that has to do with it being 94. It's so good because for a comedy, it doesn't matter. Like, you're just like, that's funny. Okay. Somebody just died. Ha ha.
So Harry... meets up, heads back to the hotel, assuming that Mary's gone off and to do something, whatever. They make it back. Andre catches up to them. Well, they have their little romance talk.
Yeah.
What was all that 1 in a million?
What was all that 1 in a million talk? Yeah, okay.
And Andre reveals that she has a husband. What was that? All that 1 in a million talk. Ties him to the bed, and then Harry shows up, and the undercover cop is there and brings him into the fold. And then, there's the whole climax about Harry getting shot and being a terrible shot.
You're alive.
Yeah. I love the Harry or Lloyd. I had a great time yesterday. She touched my leg. That kind of thing. And that's what sets him off to be like, okay, shoot him.
Shoot him.
He's a terrible shot. And then the cops come in. All the FBI agents have all been working together. And again, Lloyd has a little fantasy. Oh, well, they kind of have a little beef there about Freda Felcher, where Harry reveals that he knew about Lloyd and Freda's affair.
Yeah, I know.
But he doesn't say anything in the hot tub.
He doesn't.
So I think he was just trying to get Lloyd to
spill the beans.
Yeah. And it kind of makes me think, are they just so good of friends that they're forgiving of random things? They're forgiving of their own stupidity. Mm-hmm. And they're actually they understand that, they have feelings and are human and know things. Or are they just really dumb?
That's definitely a good point. There's something about the relationship, and I was looking because I only had a couple more of my own notes here. I was trying to think of more examples, but Harry and Lloyd are like children, which I think is kind of what also makes them lovable in a sense.
Right.
The way they fight, over the mittens or the gloves, and then the thing happening, they're kind of fighting. The way they do the tag. And no gives it back, which they do in the car and then at the end.
Right.
And
playing the prank on the gas guy?
Yeah, the prank. I was trying to think of, there was some other things. Just the tongue to the pole because of, a Christmas
hey,
story,
ice.
Right? Yeah, and then ice, hey, look. So it's kind of like a childlike, I don't even want to say wonder because they're adults. So it's almost, it's just, there's like adults who just didn't grow up and are also just kind of dumb. So
yeah, they have an innocence about them.
Yeah, and the innocence. I think that's
the bigger world doesnit's really affect them.
And then they get humanized with some of the stuff like we already kind of mentioned. So it's just something I thought I'd note because I also forgot any other specifics, but I feel like it's kind of important because otherwise they could come off like, I was also thinking you could kind of twist it and make them seem like complete sociopaths.
Which leads to Lloyd's daydream at the end with he's got a gun and he just goes and starts shooting the husband when he shows up.
That, and then when Harry, because you mentioned the snowball thing, how intense he gets over it is a little like, because he was like shoving her head into her face and it's like, there's some of that I'm like, well, that's a little aggressive. Lloyd's kissing in his dream. They kill
the owl.
The owl, and then the guy too. So even though those were accidents, it's like, what if they're secretly like they really were like ex-hitmen or something that were just dumb, and maybe they became hitmen because of their dumb luck and their stupidity, because they have like both. That's what we talked about, right? It's like they have like dumb luck with the situations, but then they just do dumb things too.
So it ends with them on the road, get passed up by a Hawaiian Tropics bus, send them the other direction, and then they're back to playing tag.
Yeah, to end off into the rolling credits.
Yeah,
until
numerous sequels, which were...
Subpar.
One was okay, one wasn't...
Which one did you... Because I didn't actually see the one with Jim Carrey, and I saw the other one, which was...
I didn't hate that one. It's definitely didn't need to be there. And it's definitely a little more gross out humor. I don't think the jokes are as strong.
Was it also were both of those Farrelly?
I don't
I feel like
know. But I feel like we said here, like there's a lot of setup and payoff in this. And I feel like the sequel was just them banking off of those characters. They didn't have as strong of a story. They just kind of wanted cash. Or to just kind of relive the nostalgia.
Because he has like a daughter or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Wow. Dumb and Dumberer has a 10% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
It is... Eugene Levy's in it. I forgot. It says it's directed by Troy Miller. I don't see a Farrelly thing on there right away.
That one they definitely
didn't. Jim Carrey, and the second one with Jim Carrey was was both Peter and Bobby Farrelly.
Cool.
So they did do that one. So that's, it must have been taking a turn for the worse as mid-teens. Right. Is that the aughts or is that the thousands? I think that's
the teens.
The teens, even
2014.
Though 2011 and 12 don't have a teen in them.
Right.
I always wonder that. Okay, the teens.
But I mean, overall, I really enjoyed this movie, and there was a lot more to the story than I realized. And there was also... there's some plot holes there with the FBI and stuff that I feel like maybe they had in deleted scenes.
Yeah, they probably.
But it was already. But for being almost a 2-hour movie for a comedy, especially back in the 90s, I feel like it was probably getting a little long. So they had to cut some story elements out.
Yeah, because they really only have the FBI like 3 times, right? The initial one. And then I think a follow-up with the sheep, maybe 1 or 2 with the following the sheepdog, because there's a couple comments, but it was like 2 lines. And then the final thing, unless you include the undercover, I forget if she had a name.
I don't remember.
But the undercover lady was just talking to both of them. Ended up talking to both of them. So both the protagonists. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it too. It was
it holds up.
It holds it pretty good for the comedy. Definitely. There's some stuff where, maybe that's the last thing we kind of go over is what is it? Not the really. Yeah. Did it age well? And would it work today still?
I mean, it's relatively tame. Mm-hmm. I think it would be fine today. I don't think it would be as successful just because I feel like audiences are a lot smarter now. Mm-hmm. And they want a lot more out of their movies. I think that a lot of people like our age, just have a soft spot for it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I'm probably biased.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think it would be out. I don't think it would be a smash hit. It might have a little cult following, but I don't think it'd be as successful if it launched today.
Yeah. It's funny how stuff like the shoving her face in the snow makes me kind of go, I don't know. It was, I guess, funny.
Nice set of Hooters you got there.
The Hooters thing. And that's the thing, is there's the poop jokes. Yeah. And I think what I've learned, I have a 6-year-old, and my wife and I still find fart and poop stuff funny. So I don't know if it necessarily shows that something's immature. I think, people laugh when it's awkward, but all that stuff is like natural thing and part of life. So I used to kind of think of it as it's the potty humor. It's kind of like lower humor. If you do a good job of it, because like you said, a lot of what they do is the setup, payoff, and all that is kind of tied in there. Even though the specific, say, toilet poop joke thing kind of just got brushed off because we don't know how he got out of there.
Right.
It's still funny. It's
still good.
They do jokes like that after this movie, so it's not like
yeah, exactly.
Like how you're saying. I think that realizing that, I mean, would I could see it having people, like you said, maybe a cult following.
Yeah,
but maybe not as successful.
Those are all the notes I've got.
Yeah. The only other thing would be like themes or something specifically, but I don't know if there's like a theme. We don't have to add that in here.
No.
We already talked about a lot. Yeah. I did put like a question of, is this actually a smart movie? Because but I don't know if that seems kind of like a dumb question.
I mean, no, not. I don't think it's a dumb question. I think it is a smart movie. I think with the whatever the Shakespeare thing was that you were saying,
malapropisms,
the malapropisms, the setup and payoff. Like they could have just thrown a bunch of stupid, dumb jokes together that were kind of meaningless. Like they do have those certain little scenes in there, but a lot of the jokes, especially in the first half of the movie, all drive the plot forward, and that's a very smart way to do a comedy.
Yeah,
where if you can throw a joke that leads to another joke that leads to another joke, and just keep advancing the plot.
Yeah,
I feel like that's pretty smart.
Yeah, and then it doesn't drag because of that. And
it's not just like one-off stupid jokes that people don't think about.
Yeah, there's so many lines in there that I just grew up remembering.
Yeah,
and even from the age of like 6 or 5 or whenever I actually saw it, probably. Yeah. Oh man. At a certain point, I start feeling like I'm dating myself.
Well, you have a wife.
Yeah, I do.
But yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, I guess we do a quick little outro, huh? Don't forget to give us some sort of comment, or review. I forget what all you can do. Check out descriptions. I don't know, what else do we say? Is there stuff like that? Stay tuned till the next one.
Till the next one.
We'll have another one.
Yeah, we might re-record the outro.
Yeah,
when we have other dates and
other
things.
Stuff. We'll add
finger
some
guns
in there. Finger guns on the non-existent video, probably. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Thanks again.
Cool.
And we'll till next time in the shack.
Until the shack comes back.
And we'll
this has been Jake and Zack.
Hey, there we go. Okay, we found our outro.
There we go.
And this is where the camera kind of pulls back
dun, 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 dun.
And then out of the inside of the cozy, fiery den with the TV, and then the outside shack of the shack.